This time on the Highland Woodworker.
I was, always interested in woodworking and real kind of handy and crafty back then, at the age of 13 or 14 years old.
He's built a terrific tiny house, a spacious workshop, and a booming banjo business. Bill Lester is a notable master woodworker who turns these classic instruments into real works of art. Plus, Popular Woodworking Magazine has a simple solution that keeps your workbench relatively clean while wood chips are a-flying. These stories and more, this time on the Highland Woodworker. Hello everyone, I'm Charles Brock and I'm a Highland Woodworker. Highland Woodworking in Atlanta, Georgia has all the fine woodworking tools that you need to tackle any woodworking project in your shop. If you can't make it to the store in person, you can get what you need delivered online from highlandwoodworking.com. When you think about country music, you'll most likely hear a banjo somewhere in the mix. Well, just about an hour south of the Music City, you'll find master woodworker Bill Lester inside his hand-built workshop creating the instruments known for producing that oh-so-popular Nashville sound. Let's go meet Bill now in our Moment with a Master. Bill Lester.
Chuck, glad to have you.
Oh, this is great. Not only are we in a real official tiny house that you and your wife Robin designed, we're in Santa Fe, Tennessee.
That's right. Not Santa Fe, Santa Fe.
Ah, geez. I guess the locals just call it Santa Fe.
They do, which according to the locals is the correct pronunciation.
It's nice to be corrected.
That's right.
Now, tell me about the architecture and the design of the tiny house.
Well, yeah, we moved out here after my wife and I retired and moved from our bigger house. We wanted to downsize and we had this property. We absolutely loved it. And originally I had designed a big house. And I kept changing the design and it took like a couple of years just to kind of get through it, and my wife realized I was never going to actually be able to build a house that big. So she said, well, let's do a small house that we'll add on to later. And so we built this small house. And now we've been here for 3 years. We still haven't added on because, to be honest with you, really love having just 600 square feet to have to worry about. We've got everything we want, So I don't know that we will ever add on.
As a woodworker, you not only design the house, but you're building all of the doors and all. What is the house?
Well, we built the house.
Wow.
So we subbed out some things, obviously. The stonework on the foundation, I didn't do that. The electrical, I wired it, but I didn't hook it up, But we did the framing, we did the siding, we did the roof. We built both the shop and the house. And my wife put the roof on. She was on not only on this, but also on the shop, which is 2 stories high. I made a little ladder for her and I tied a rope around her, but she got up there with the nail gun and the sheathing and just went to town,
Wow.
She's less afraid of heights than I am. Plus she could fit through the rafters. I couldn't do that.
All right, we've got a little trail here from the house down to the shop. You build banjos here.
I do.
And dulcimers.
Yeah.
Let's see what you do.
Yeah, sure. Well, welcome to the shop.
Banjo land. Oh man, some beautiful banjos.
Yeah, thank you.
Fretted
Thank you.
one here, and this one's fretless.
Yeah, this is a fretless banjo. I couldn't bring myself to saw a bunch of grooves into this beautiful Macassar ebony that I had, and I put some nylon strings on it, which is a little bit different, and it's also tuned different. It's tuned to what they call a sawmill tuning, and which is kind of more of a darker tuning, but you can play some old-timey kind of songs and that sort of thing.
Very
on it.
old-timey, yes.
And it's walnut, and the rim is hickory, and it's steam bent hickory, and the tone ring. This is the tone ring, which is sort of a beveled piece of rosewood, and that's a very dense wood. I use dense woods for the tone ring, more of acoustical sort of woods, and then I'll put a trim cap on it to kind of conceal the layers of that sort of thing.
All right, so we have the rim, the tone ring,
and the trim cap.
And the trim cap,
Yeah.
I see. That's kind of like a drum. The inside edge of a drum is beveled.
Exactly,
Yes.
and you'll find on some banjos, particularly bluegrass banjos, that sort of thing, they'll have a heavy cast bronze ring, and they're going to be a much louder, banjo than this.
Bill, how did you get interested in building banjos?
Well, my granddad was a banjo player. I love my granddad. And on Sundays, we'd go over to the house and they'd have a regular hootenanny. Everybody'd sit around. He'd play his old banjo, and my cousins and uncles would play their guitars and harmonicas, and my brothers and I, we couldn't play anything. But I used to always would sneak his banjo out and go into his room and look at it, and I thought, man, this thing is a piece of junk. It was 100 years old probably at the time, had no ornament on it, no ornamentation on it, no markings of any kind. Sounded terrible when I tried to play it. Of course, when he played it, it was wonderful. And I thought I would upgrade my granddad's banjo for him.
Yeah.
And I was, always interested in woodworking and real kind of handy and crafty back then, at the age of 13 or 14 years old. And so by the time I had worked through all of the various challenges of bending rims and carving necks and fitting it together, 3 years had gone by, I think, and my granddad already checked out. He never got that banjo, but
That's a shame.
yeah, but that's how I really enjoyed the process of figuring out how to do things like bend rims, how to cut angles and stuff like that. The rims, of course, they're going to start off as a piece of wood like this. Those are all stacks of future rim material there. I'm steam bending some rims right now, and we'll twist some of those up here in a minute. But basically, we'll take them out of the steam bender, and they're going to be round like this. And we're going to take them and then put them into that glue-up form and put glue on them. And I use a wedge. It's kind of a medieval process, but between using wedges and pie-shaped cauls, I'll laminate them all together and glue them up. And then I'm going to take them out of the form after I've glued them up, and this is what they're going to look like. I've put wood in here of 4 different species, because they don't always work out very well. Sometimes they break.
All right.
They'll break if the short grain or grain runoff, any irregularities in the wood may potentially cause it to break or rupture, that sort of thing. So I'm hoping we'll get some good bends out of this. And I'll put these over here because I may be using them with these block forms. This is my bending form right here. So I'll get these gloves on. So I'm going to take a hot rim out of my simple steam box, very basic construction, works well, hooked up to a wallpaper steamer. I believe this one is Osage. I write the length of it on here so that when it comes to putting them in the form, I'll know. And I put the bevel up. I'll insert this like so. And then keeping a downward pressure so that the pressure is acting straight down, not at an angle. And then it'll want to slip out of this notch that I've made, so that's what I use these for. And as you can see, when they're hot like this, they're pretty pliable. So I will take this, a couple of clamps on it. This one did not break, that's good. And then I'm going to take my gloves off because I'm going to put a strap on it so that I can take it off this form. So it's cooled down enough for me to kind of handle it. Now I'm going to put a strap on it so that I can take it off of this. I'm going to take a little stick that I stick underneath here to keep from deforming the thin end. And it, you know, it can be a kind of a rodeo getting this thing on there. But then that's going to help protect that fragile end as I tighten that up. So, you know, after a little while, I'm going to take it off of the rim. So it doesn't need to be on the rim, and I don't want it deforming too much into that notch. So I'll take it off, and it'll just basically be like this, and it'll set, it'll dry, and somewhat set to that position. I'm going to show you how we're going to use this form to laminate the rims. I'm not going to put any glue on them right now. We're just going to do a dry fit. I like to do a dry fit because I can examine the rims and see if everything's fitting together properly, because I don't want any gaps. So I'm just taking these off of the straps that have been holding them roughly to shape. And so they're kind of ready to go. And I'll write the length of them on here so that I'll know where they go relative to the rim. This is 3 feet 2 inches long. This is 3 feet and a half inch long. So this is the outer rim. This is the middle rim.
So normally the laminating is the gluing of the scarf joint.
The scarf joints and gluing the rims together as well. And the glue kind of helps sometimes because it provides a slippier medium for the spreading apart to work.
Yeah.
This is a very basic kind of a wedge with a wedge cut in these pie-shaped pieces. I wax this. This is just silicone rubber, and I'll wax them. I'll start off, I'll put this 3'2" one in here first, and we'll just get that, of course it had a little spring back, and so we're going to just kind of get that positioned in there, like so. Sorry about that. And then I'm going to come in with a little narrower piece, and that is going to go in here.
Oh, so it's several pieces.
It takes 2 days to do this because I do one piece at a time, and there's 3 pieces. So that's going to go in there like so. And
at the whole time you're putting glue?
Yeah, I'll put glue on the inside of the outside face and on the outside of the inside face. I use a slow set glue because I want all the time I can and getting this stuff positioned.
Is it a protein glue or a...
It's well, it's a tight bond, just a tight bond, slow set glue.
Okay.
And then I'll put a little the rubber pieces in there that will help distribute the pressure more evenly. And I've got them kind of numbered where they go. So these are just going to kind of fit in here like so. And let me grab this piece off the floor.
And they've all got this little bevel that matches that on the inside. So if you put it in upside down, it doesn't work.
That's right. And that's why we have this big old hammer here. And sometimes what I'm going to need to do, sometimes what I have to do is temporarily we'll put a clamp on some of these. There we go, we'll get that thing kind of in there. Let's see if we can do this without having to get too involved with doing anything special. Like I said, this is kind of a medieval sort of thing. So I've got my pie-shaped cauls in there, and I've got this. I also have, let me grab it, well, maybe we can do without those, but I have some dowels that fit into here that help keep it aligned as it is spreading apart.
Yeah, that sounds smart.
And then basically we're going to go to town here. So
okay.
So what that does then, that's going to expand. It exerts pressure all around.
Yeah.
And if it's done right, you know, you're gonna wind up with a nicely laminated rim with no gaps.
All right.
And I'll reduce the size of those cauls with the next rim. I'll use the next side with the next layer. And there's a few other things I do as far as making sure they're aligned and putting these in here that helps even, you know, you wouldn't have this gap if I had put those dowels in there. But basically it just goes in like that. I'll knock the wedge out. I'll pull these out. The rubber pieces have all been waxed real good, so they're not going to stick. Run it through the sander and, you know, we're good to go.
When we come back, Bill walks us through more of his banjo building process. But first, from banjos to bungee cords, Popular Woodworking Magazine clears the air and your workbench in their Tips, Tricks, and Techniques segment. Stick around, you're watching the Highland Woodworker.
I'm just an average, down-to-earth woodworker. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'm probably about a 5. But one place I score a perfect 10 is right here, and I plan on keeping all 10. That's why I have a saw-stop table saw. And there's more. Plenty of power, superior dust collection, and absolute accuracy. These features have made it the best-selling cabinet saw in America. Let Highland Woodworking help you put a saw-stop in your shop.
There's 4 words that Lee Tools lives by. 4 words that mean quality joinery to take your projects to the next level. Whether it's dovetails, box joints, or mortise and tenon. And we'll even help you clean up. Those 4 words? Better tools, better results.
I've been using Forest products for years. You know, they're the maker of the Woodworker 2 saw blade. Gives great cuts on your table saw every time. Now I have a chop master for my miter saw. I have a dense piece of 2x2 walnut, and as you see, it cuts like butter, leaving clean cuts at 90 degrees. Forest, the cuts will make you smile every time.
As you may know, working at your workbench, you can create quite a mess, whether it's sanding or planing, or in this case, using your handheld router to create profiles. And it would be really nice to keep a dust vacuum hose nearby, but it's really hard to keep it from just sliding off the bench. But one of our readers, Bobby Mink, had a great tip. He used one of these bungee cords. It's the type with the ball on the end, often used for tarps, I believe. And he strings that up through the dog hole underneath in his bench. You see, goes up through the bench. You can put it around the hose, keeps it right in place. That way, it'll catch some of the chips, not all of them. But if you're in between routing, you can take your broom, sweep some of the chips in there, and keep a relatively clean work surface. It's a great way to save up some of the mess and some of the time cleaning later.
Got some great tools here that were developed by Chris Schwarz, famous for Lost Art Press, the Anarchist Tool Chest, and a colleague of his, Rainey Nelson, gets an assist on many of them. I want to start out showing you a hold down. This is a real hold down. For years, I would buy a hold down and I was always disappointed. Well, this beast here has a 1-inch shaft. Now, I've cut mine off because I've been using it in this bench mainly, and it was a little too long for this bench, so I cut that off. But let me show you how wonderfully it works. Most hold downs just don't work. They don't hold down, so what's the use? All right, I'm going to set this one. And look at that. Now you can put a piece of leather under there, or cork or something like that if you don't want to mar the surface. But there's nothing like an easy to work hold down that does the job. Now you may ask, do you really need a hammer like that? Sometimes you need a big hammer. Sometimes you need a small hammer. This is the perfect hammer. It's a lump hammer for staked furniture, driving legs into a reamed mortise, perfect for that. It also can be used when you're mortising. You can put the weight and the blow right where you want to put it by choking up on it. Wonderful tool. Everybody's got a need for dividers, laying out dovetails on a board or laying out mortises for chair spindles. Use this all the time. Now, some of the dividers are so ridiculously made that they will just articulate any old time and you'll lose your measurement. Well, you can vary that articulation. You can lock it down where it's not going to move at all, or you can give yourself a little bit less resistance so you can open it up just some. But you don't want to measure everything. You want to set that measurement, use it over and over again. These dividers are going to make you smile. Let me show you another tool from Crucible. It's a cabinet scraper. It's made from spring steel, and it doesn't have to be bowed with your thumbs to get that arc across the bottom because it's already laser cut in there. And its hardness on the Rockwell scale is perfect for being able to make that burr and roll it over and look at the shavings. It comes ready to work, so you'll know what it's like to use a scraper. You'll be able to re-roll that burr and work it till you get shavings just like that again. One other thing, pinch rods. Well, so what is a pinch rod? What good is it? Well, on each end of the pinch rod, you make these little sticks and you stick them through these holders. This is what you get. And it can be as long as you want, or it can even be shorter if you'd like. for different applications. But what I like is, let's say I have a drawer and I want to see if it's square. I can put this in one corner, this in the other corner, and I can move it in and out till it fits in that corner. Then I swap sides, and if it doesn't fit right into the corner like it did the other way, it's not square. So then you can put a clamp on it till it is square. I like to use it kind of as a story stick. I will, on one side of a sculptured rocker, I'll say, all right, this is where I'm going to drill to attach the arm. Well, then I can move it to the other side, and I can make a mark there, and I've got them the same height without having to measure. There's so much you can do with a story stick. I think you're going to love these Crucible tools. I know I do. Coming up, making music with Bill Lester. You're watching the Highland Woodworker. Highland Woodworking stocks a wide selection of Rikon power tools, known for their innovative design and rugged durability. Highland has sold thousands of Rikon's industry-leading bandsaws with sizes to fit every woodworking need, from the compact, affordable 10-inch model to competitively priced 14 and 18-inch models. Shop us also for Rikon's reliable planers, lathes, and professional low-speed grinder, all with an exceptional 5-year warranty. Rikon Power Tools. Whiteside Machine Company has been in business for over 30 years, providing customers with quality router bits. Fine Woodworking Magazine has declared Whiteside router bits best overall and best value when compared against 17 other brands. No matter the router application, they have the type and profile of carbide router bit you need. When you put a Whiteside router bit to work in your shop, it is guaranteed to make you smile. If you can't make it to Highland Woodworking in Atlanta, Georgia, you can shop online at highlandwoodworking.com. They're great at getting what you want to your shop quick. Let Highland's legendary wood slicer resaw blade help make it easy for you to get great results sawing thick lumber into thinner boards. The wood slicer is designed to cut much faster, smoother, and quieter than ordinary bandsaw blades. You'll be amazed at how smooth a surface you'll get with a wood slicer. Its variable tooth pattern greatly reduces noise and vibration. Order a wood slicer from Highland Woodworking for your bandsaw today.
We're going to make a tone ring.
All right.
The tone ring is made out of these blocks of wood. They are glued together in two halves. I use these little pinch clamps that, you know, you just kind of grab on there. They do a great job for laminating those things together. Now, I cut these on a jig, but they're not going to be perfect. Everything is kind of jig dependent around here when it comes to building banjos. So this thing's just going to kind of fit into here like so. I'm going to clamp this down, and then very simple process to just So I'm going to do that to both sides of these, and the end result is that we have a perfectly matched octagon that will then be glued to the top of the rim that we just made. And after we glue it, I'm going to trim off some of the excess, and then I'm going to take it over here to the lathe. So I've trimmed off a lot of the excess on this. So we've got the rim, we've got the tone ring. In this case, this tone ring is persimmon, another very dense wood.
Sure.
And then we're going to just turn this down flush with the face of the rim. In the process of turning it, one thing that's very important, and that's to keep the sides straight and square with the top. Now I'll use a carpenter's square. So I'll just kind of straddle this and then look at it and look for gaps. And so right now you can see it's a little proud on this side. Maybe not so much here. You know, and I'll check in a couple of places. So what that's telling me is that this side needs to come down a little bit. And with that, then I will use a scraper like this.
Right.
So that's going to allow me to come in there and then, you know, have a nice flat surface and kind of shave it down a little bit. Come back, check it again, and just keep doing that until I get it square. And then ultimately, I'm going to continue doing this until I can get that tension hoop to fit over the top. I won't bevel it yet. That's going to be one of the last things I do because I need to drill the holes in there, and it's so much easier to work with it in this form. And I use jigs to drill the holes actually on the lathe. I use the lathe for quite a bit. I use it
because you can index the lathe and to drill your holes.
So I can, you know, but I use it for shaping the dowel stick. I have a jig that I put the dowel stick on there, and I drill the tendon on that on the lathe. I cut the tendon, and there's just multiple uses. I use this unconventionally in a lot of ways in the process of making a banjo. This is a neck blank, cherry, curly cherry, laminated. I like to laminate them. I have a truss rod that I'll put in here. This is just kind of to show you. I'll put the truss rod in, and I'll put the fretboard on, and often put the heel cap on. But right now I've got to fit a neck that is going to be at a 2-degree angle off horizon and a 2-degree angle off center, because the banjo neck is not symmetrical. It has a 5th string approximately 4 frets down, you know, midway.
That kind of gums it up.
Yeah, you know, the center line is something goofy. You know, it's the middle of 4 strings up on the 3rd. Ultimately, the center line is the 3rd string of a 5-string banjo. But because there's only 4 strings at the top, it's got to be off center. So, got to make a jig for that. So, this particular jig has and this is right now taped down, but basically this is canted at a slight angle, and then this wedge is to give you the angle off of level plane.
The 2 degrees.
The 2 degrees. So you've got this is at an angle, this is at an angle. This is a compound angle, 2 different degrees. So very simple. I'm just going to kind of hold that thing in there. I've routed a a template that I clamp down to the bandsaw. This kind of fits with the template, and we'll just cut the heel real quick. So that's going to give me this angled cut, but we're not through with this.
Okay.
I take this same template over to the sander, and I have a corresponding template on the sander, and I'll do the same thing with the sander, and the sander is going to smooth this out. We're still not done with cutting that heel because the tension ring has to fit down into that. So the next step would be to take, again, my template over to the router table, where I'll use the router table to cut the recess for the tension hoop to fit down into. And then we're ready to put the dowel stick in, we're ready to fit it to the rim.
Can all come together.
Yeah, we all start coming together. So we're going to have us a nice finished rim on a block of wood. And then that's when the fun part starts, and you get to really create something out of that block of wood, you know, something sculptural, something beautiful like a neck. So prior to cutting the end of the neck blank, I'm going to install a truss rod into the neck blank. These knobs will be under the 1st fret and the 17th fret. Route out a 1/4 inch channel, drill hole for the knob. This is going to recess in there. I'm going to put a 1/4 inch strip of wood in there, completely encapsulate it within the neck, except these two will be at the very end. I'll sand it all flush again, and then I'll glue the fretboard on, and then we'll cut it on the heel radius jig. So that's a very narrow curved blade, fine tooth.
It is.
And I have a jig that I made that has a little pin in it. And so what I have templates here. This is a store-bought template here. One side's a master tone fret spacing. The other side is for mandolin. The ebony will basically be double stick taped to this. So that's going to be attached to the template. Now the template is going to, got everything on rollers around here, it's going to register on that pin, where that pin is. So this will be stuck on here, you know, a little ahead of that. I'll be able to come through here and just zip, and then I'll move it to the next pin. Do it again.
I see.
And I'll just work my way down until I've cut the fret slots in there. And then we'll put the frets in.
Well, what's next?
Well, from there, so we've got the neck, and it's still in square form. It's easy to work with. I want to keep it in that shape as long as I can. The shaping of the neck is the very last thing. But as long as it's in that nice, stable square form, then I will go and do a little inlaying on it, you know. And I'll also cut the angle for the peg head, and at that time, then I'm going to come back and I'm going to do the peg head, and I'm going to do the inlay while it's still square.
Yeah, because you have references.
Yeah,
at
I
that
can,
point.
you know, it's easy, it's stable, I can clamp it in there, my little router and everything will just fit on top.
Yeah.
And I can just
That's
go
one of the
go
keys
town.
to woodworking is keeping your square references
Yeah.
as long as possible, because after that, who knows?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You know, this is a lot of fun too. I tell you, that's why I make these things, because they are so fun. So I've got a lot of things kind of going on here. We've got the peg heads that we need to make. So over the years, I've come up with different templates for the peg heads. And so often I won't do any kind of board or anything on the peg head, but occasionally I will, where I'll get a piece of wood and I'll have a special template that I'll use with a small router to kind of route a border out. And then I'll fill that with some casting resin, like the peg head on this banjo is done, you know. And so you got that nice little border around it that is just cast resin. But I don't do that too much, but when I do it, I'll do that sort of thing. And then I'll go to the pearl, and I use a lot of different materials. Even what they call inlays, use crushed stone, that sort of thing. But I use primarily mother of pearl. Mother of pearl's great. It's easy to cut and it doesn't break. Abalone's beautiful, but it's a little more temperamental. It's easy to break.
It's actually cut from a shell, isn't it?
It is,
yes.
Yeah. And I've been using more and more of this reconstituted stone product, which they manufacture in like 50, 60 thousandths of an inch thick to match the thickness of the pearl. And with that, I have a very small router base, and within this, like a Dremel type tool will go. And this is really cool because it has a depth
it plunges.
gauge. It has a depth gauge. So if I'm cutting a piece of inlay,
So that's the depth gauge there.
yeah. So I'm gonna put that thing in there. Well, I'm gonna put my tool in there, and then I'm gonna drop it all the way down and lock it. And then I'm going to come in here and put my piece of pearl in there, press it down, lock it, take it out, and then all of my cuts will be the correct depth for the pearl. These are the size bits that I use for this, everything from a 3/64 up to 1/8 of an inch. And as far as cutting the pearl itself, I'll often sketch out a design. I like a lot of nature scenes and things like that. This is a little inlay that I'm working on now for a dulcimer. I'm not finished with it. It's just a yellow finch on a thistle branch, And so I'll sketch that out on sketch paper, and I'll glue that sketch paper onto the pearl blank, and then I'll use a little fine jeweler saw with like a 60 tooth per inch blade on it, and I'll just sit here and cut that thing out. I'll use some files to kind of clean it up, and then I'll transfer that to the ebony. I'll transfer the shape of it. So what I do, I have white transfer paper for ebony. So I'll put the white transfer paper down on the ebony. I'll put the pearl blank on there. I'll use a scribe, and I'll scribe around it to transfer the image, and then I'll route it out. And I've glued it into place using both epoxy and super glue. I tend to getting more used to using the super glue, where not super glue, but CA glue, and I have some very fine black powder that I'll kind of pour on there and then rub it out and put a little CA glue on there, sand it smooth, and you can't see any seams. If without doing it, then there'd be gaps and all kinds of stuff.
That's wonderful.
But using that little bit of black powder kind of fixes the imperfections in it all.
So there are all kinds of woodworking that goes into a banjo. Plus you have the hardware and heads and everything else. Do you want to go pick some?
Sure, let's do it.
I brought a mandolin. We can see, we might get run off.
I'll do my best. I'm not promising anything.
I have the same situation. Well, I'd like to introduce Robin, who is Bill's wife. We're going to play a little ditty in a minute, but as time tells, this is all the time we have for this episode of the Highland Woodworker. Be sure to follow us on our social media channels, and until next time, I'm Charles Brock, and I'm a Highland Woodworker. 1, 2, 3, 4. Improve your woodworking experience. Sign up for Wood News Online, a monthly newsletter showcasing the latest news, tips, and classes Highland Woodworking has to offer. By signing up, you'll receive the latest episode of the Highland Woodworker, special store promotions, and Wood News Online delivered straight to your inbox. Sign up today.